Hey, welcome to Bifocal. Today we're going to be talking about something that's pretty heavy right now. It's pretty hot topic. It's sales and marketing. We have the president of Concept on, and he's going to give us his view on some things. So stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. This show, I think, is it's going to hit a lot of people because I think a lot of companies are addressing this topic now and probably in the past and moving forward. This is on everybody's plate right now. It's sales and marketing, and where are we going and how has it changed? We have Jeff Harsh, president of Concept, with us today, and he's going to share a little bit about kind of what that means for his company and what he's seeing in the market. So, Jeff, welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
You've had quite a whirlwind here over the last few months.
Yeah. Well, as of November of last year, moved over to the president role here at Concept. And, since then, when I first took over, I was really preparing for 2020 and figuring out what the game plan was and strategies and budgets. And we got to spend a lot of time getting all that in place and had a vision and a goal. And no sooner did we get that going, and towards, end of Q1, everything kind of changed with all of this coronavirus stuff.
So you went from proactive into reactive mode real quick.
Yeah, it was. It's been a crazy 2020 so far.
Has it settled down at all for you as far as the COVID and the restructuring you had to go through? I mean, do you think you've seen the worst of it? Where are you at with that?
I think things have settled down quite a bit over the last couple weeks. I feel like with everything that's going on, I've learned, though, that it's still some uncertainty, I'm sure, ahead of us. But I think the first couple weeks and probably even into the first month, we had a lot of stuff that was coming at us from our customers and a lot of stuff we had to deal with internally here to just make sure we were ready to go for that. And then also responding to what our customers were throwing over our way and how it was impacting them. But I think since then, seems like our customers have gotten to a point of being a little bit more stable. They're starting to shift from fire to, okay, what are we going to do now?
You're actually seeing that now?
We are. And it's been fascinating because some of our customers recognize fires, but they kept their foot on the gas through the whole thing from the very beginning. We've had other customers that were fire, slowed some things up, but now are coming back. And then we've had some customers that are still in fire right now. So
everybody's responding differently.
They are. And so that's been fascinating. And but I think things have slowed a little bit. It seems like we're spending a little bit more time thinking about what's to come as compared to how to respond. Just
kind of to maybe bring everything up to speed, you mentioned you moved into the president role in November. You've been with Concept for a while.
Almost 10 years.
Okay, so you've been around in the company.
Yeah.
I mean, have you performed many of the roles? Have you been in one particular area? Kind of what that looked like?
Yeah. So started 10 years ago. I started as a SDR, and at the time we called it a BDM. Spent about a year there, and then pretty much since then I've taken on quite a few different roles all the way up to the president role. I was a floor supervisor for about a year after being an SDR, moved over to our accounts team, managed accounts, developed strategy for our customers on how to build out an SDR team. After that, actually moved over and we were going through a CRM migration and moved over to help out with that. And it was Salesforce. And after getting done with that, that ultimately turned into starting a Salesforce.com agency and taking the lessons that we learned and taking that to market.
Are you a CRM guy?
I am. I like CRM a lot. Right now I got 3 certifications in Salesforce. I got quite a few in HubSpot. So I enjoy.
You believe in it?
I'm a big believer in it. And so I did that for about a year. And then after that, We got our CRM group up and running, and that group was growing, and our sales development group was growing even faster than that. So I left our CRM group, went back over onto the sales development side of our business and managed both the operation and the accounts aspect of things. And there was several different iterations for a couple years through that. And then before moving into the president role, spent the last year and a half, 2 years or so in sales and marketing. And
so you've been around through the company.
Yeah, I think the only role that I really didn't do firsthand was finance. And that's pretty much the only role that I didn't personally do during that 10-year journey.
Yeah. How much do you think today, let's face it, we're in the midst of something we've never been in, right? How much is COVID-19 changing sales and marketing? How much is it changing concept, what concept offers, what companies are doing, how companies are looking at sales, how they're looking at marketing? I mean, how do you view all that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to change and has changed a lot already. And I think there was, as far as sales and marketing goes, the neat thing about sales and marketing even before this was it's something that I feel like is always getting reviewed, and there's been a lot of stuff that's happened over the last several years that I think was shaking some of the ground already. Some of the new technology out there, I feel like digital marketing's making a big had been making a big push. But I think prior to all of this, there was still several people, or I would say the majority of people, that were still kind of stuck in some of their old sales marketing mindset as to how they were going to attack the market. And some of these new philosophies or strategies were just neat, would probably be how they would describe it, as compared to essential. And so I know. Do you think?
I think that's interesting because I've been in sales a long time, and there's always the new thing. There's always the bigger, the better, the best. And I think there's a lot of companies out there. In the past, I know this from firsthand, and I still believe it today. They're looking for that new, bigger, better because they think it might be easier, and they're looking for a quick fix.
Well, I think what's interesting about it, we're at Concept, we're in CRM and digital marketing and sales development, and we work with a lot of sales and marketing groups. And I think it's probably fair to say that over the 10 years that I've been around various different sales and marketing organizations, I rarely, if ever, am hearing someone say, man, we have way too many sales, our marketing's way too good, and all of our processes and visibility is just beyond tight. You're
not seeing that.
It just doesn't happen. And I think because no sooner do you spend time getting something set in one of those areas, and things change, whether it's you lose a big rep over here, and that causes you to have to retool your whole territory to go over here, or your market shifts, or whatever the reason is, you're always reevaluating. A new piece of technology comes out, a new lead source you want to take advantage of, and you just are constantly retooling and retweaking things.
So how do you remedy that? How's a company remedy that moving forward? That they're not constantly retooling, they're not constantly changing directions. I mean, what do they got to do? What do you recommend to companies that you say, hey, this is really what you need moving forward?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to probably unpack to answer that question. I think it probably starts with companies getting off of the mindset that we just always need to be changing our lead sources until we find the best lead source.
Get off of that mindset?
Get off of that mindset.
What do you mean by that?
I feel like in past it was like, okay, my sales reps are good. Like I'm good with my sales reps. So what I really need to do is just find the right lead source to solve all of these problems. whether that is a trade show or whether that is paid search or whether that is sales development group or whatever the case is, in isolation and routing leads over to their reps and having their reps say,
Oh, you're saying companies get off the mindset of that's my lead source.
yeah,
And that's it. I'm putting focus there.
I'm putting focus there, and I just need to get the right lead source for my group. If I get the right lead source, we're going to be in good shape.
Isn't that true, though? If they get the right lead source, they're going to be in good shape.
I think in an ideal world, yes, but I think that what we're finding more and more is that companies, or at least the companies that we're seeing on the real progressive side of things, are starting to recognize that a lead source is really only a fraction of the battle. And that
I'm assuming the lead sources change
nonstop.
These 2 months, this could be a good lead source. The next 2 months, I'm assuming this could be a good lead source.
Not even just due to market response, but due to strategy. Depending on where they're trying to go or what they're trying to do, lead sources can shift, lead sources can change. But I think probably even more importantly than that, what we're seeing is the market, like the way people are buying and purchasing in the B2B space, is shifting quite a bit, to the point where, in an ideal world in the past, it was find lead, send to sales, sales closes deal. And
in a perfect world.
And everyone was trying to build that mousetrap. And then when lead comes in, past the sales, sales closes it, show ROI on that lead, call it game over. That lead source equals ROI. And that's not really how it's working. It can, but the fraction of times that actually happens that way is becoming more and more minimal. And there's a whole bunch that goes into that, but just to kind of give a little bit of a different example, now it's starting to look more like lead comes in, they're just kind of poking around or looking at something, or they attended a trade show booth. They need worked, they need nurtured, they need followed up on. And that follow-up and that nurturing needs to come from a whole slew of different...
Is that a gap in the market?
The follow-up and nurturing? I believe so. And I think it's twofold. I think, one, it's a problem because you're continue to be focusing on source. And so you keep looking for all of these sources to bring them in.
Now, for my own clarification, when you say that you're looking for source, are companies assuming when that lead comes in, it's a ready-to-go lead? And is that part of the problem? Because they're not ready to go all the time?
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is because it's complex to manage it anything more than that. It's complex.
And they're not set up for that.
They're not set up or have an interest in even trying to get to that level of specificity along the way. They would prefer to keep it as simple as put rep in territory, give rep lead, track ROI on lead, period. And then if it doesn't work, change lead, get better lead to rep, track, see if it works, period.
So that obviously lends itself to just constantly trying to create a new mousetrap all the time.
Yeah, and to even further complicate that, they throw a variable in the mix that says, how do you determine whether the lead is good? My reps are not putting anything inside of CRM. They're just telling me whether or not it's good. So from a marketing perspective, we work with marketing companies all the time that have been tasked to find the lead source of the golden eggs that turn into deals. But from a analytics perspective, very difficult to do that when you're quantifying based off of feedback, arbitrary feedback that's coming over from the reps without any...
And we know that could be all over the place, right? That feedback could be everywhere.
Yeah. And based off of what?
Yeah.
Like what good lead based on? Is that a good lead based on what the marketing team said was a good lead? Is it a good lead based on what the sales manager wants to be a good lead? Is it a good lead based off of what the sales rep thinks right now?
How important is it that sales and marketing are working together? And how's that look today, or at least how should it look in your opinion versus maybe even a year ago, 2 years ago, how it was looking?
Yeah, I'm from our perspective, what we've been seeing is that marketing seems to be taking on and absorbing a whole lot more today than it was doing in the past. On a variety of fronts. Previously, it was find the sources. Now they're playing a much more active role in the systems that go into that. We're seeing marketing take a much larger piece of ownership into the CRM aspect of things, where sales was previously doing that before. And in most cases, wasn't doing it very effectively, just looking at quoting and stuff, but not really using it as a proactive tool. And then I think marketing's playing a deeper role in progressing deals through the funnel now than they ever have.
Is marketing becoming another salesperson? Or a sales component as opposed, is marketing considered marketing anymore, or is marketing considered sales?
I guess I would answer that two ways. I would answer it yes. They're getting considered to be a salesperson in the sense that the impact they can have should be quantifiable to the tune of a sales rep.
Do they need to be measured that way?
I believe so, but I think there's a variable to that. And the variable is, under no circumstances really on the B2B space, if that last part of the process requires a sales rep to go in and scope the deal, the marketing is not going to close that deal. So to look at them in isolation compared to a sales rep, you have to be able to track that all the way through, but you also have to recognize that the sales team has to be there to get the deal across the finish line in most cases. And we run into this a lot where, a typical sales leader or owner of a company, when they're going through and figuring out where should I put dollars, should I just put it over to another sales rep, or should I further diversify into my marketing or sales development efforts? I believe some of the problem with that is a lot of them, they will defer to adding another sales rep to the territory because it's as simple as put rep in territory, see what they sell, and tell if it's good or not.
It seems tangible, direct, simple, and it's old school. That's how we did it.
Yep. And in fairness, if that's how you're tracking, if you want to track it that simple, then yeah.
And I'm assuming though that isn't true for every industry.
No. In terms of what?
Well, I'm assuming there's some old school industries out there that are probably doing what you just suggested, but I'm also assuming there's probably some pretty progressive industries, maybe more on the technology side, especially today. They're not necessarily thinking like that.
No. And in fairness, I say that I almost put that in a way where it seems like the sales reps are getting a bad rap, and I don't necessarily mean it that way. On the flip side of things, I feel like the task for salespeople these days, both on the technology side and even in the old school industries out there, their task has increased as of recently as well. They're required to be much more consultative, develop much more strategic sales approaches inside of there as compared to just take lead, give order form, have fill out inside of it.
Because what's driving that?
I think just the buyers inside of the market are looking for it when they're purchasing this type of equipment or product or service. Is the buyer more educated? Without a doubt. And what's been fascinating to watch is as we work across a whole bunch of different industries and supporting their sales and marketing efforts, the amount of front end research that's getting done even before they're turning over into a lead just seems getting greater and greater and greater. And that's only really inside of the areas that we can see on our own internal research that they're doing of our site or those types of things. So you would only assume that they're out doing the same level of research and learning through various areas, other sites, other tools out there to be able to look into that.
Well, it almost sounds like if I'm a company president, I'm a company owner, and I'm not talking the GEs and the GMs of the world, but I'm sure this holds true to them to some extent. But if I'm a small, mid-size company, okay, almost seems like I got to step back and totally rethink my sales and marketing moving forward. And that's got to be a scary, daunting thought.
Yeah, but what's been pretty exciting, a lot of this coronavirus stuff that's came through has kind of had this lens of doom and gloom or unfortunate or I really got hit hard as a result of this. But from an exciting perspective, I think it's forced a lot of people that were stuck in ways to have to go back and reevaluate this. So it's almost like the board is now white. As compared to all of these, what were written in permanent marker, those are no longer there.
But you got a company. Let's say we have a company out there. They're not used to this type of sales and marketing approach moving forward. They don't have that staff on board because that's not how they did it. The president, the owner, he or she is not of that mentality because that's not how they did it. What are they supposed to do? And then they're probably sitting back saying, oh man, if I do that, that's going to cost me a lot of money. How do they mentally go through that? Where would they even start?
Yeah, I think that especially right now, and this is kind of a isolated example, but I think right now more than ever, if you have to take a step back and figure out what the actual task at hand is. What's the primary objective that you're going after for sales and marketing? A good example would be right now, many businesses have taken a hit with some of their existing customers. Okay, well now I want to turn on my sales and marketing efforts. Well, who am I going after? Am I trying to get back those customers that I lost? Am I trying to keep the customers that I have? Or am I trying to go out and steal the customers that left the other people through the same thing that I went through? Because when we typically asked our customers that, the response...
What if it might be all three?
That's what the customer... It's all three of those. Okay. Well, the strategy for all three of those scenarios is most likely different in terms of how you want to do that. And so, you have to sit back, I feel like, as a leader and start thinking through how exactly would I go keep those customers that I have? What do I need to be doing to keep those customers that I have? What about those past customers? And to keep the customers that you have, that there could be a lot of components in that. It might be as simple as sending out a sales guy to make sure that the relationship is sounded, they have everything that they need. But meanwhile, they're getting bombarded with a whole bunch of competitors coming at them with outbound strategic positioning and messaging of how they're going to be helping them out and what they've done or the service that they can provide over to them. And then you go after some of the new stuff. I think you have to spend some time really thinking about what exactly do I want from a new, and how do I want to get those new people? Like, are these new people going to be out searching for stuff right now? Do they have a need that they already know that they're going to be out searching for things? Or do I need to put together a very strategic outbound strategy? I know the people that I want to go after, and they may or may not be searching. They may or may not even know that they need this stuff right now. How am I going to get this message in front of those better, faster, more efficient than others?
What you're saying is, hey, if I'm a business owner, I can't just add people and say, hey, here, go sell. This is what we sell. This is why people would want to go out and do that. I can't do that anymore.
Well, I wouldn't recommend doing that because it's going to be limiting. And then to add even more to that, if you go tell the strategy that whatever strategy you picked or combination thereof strategy, if you go tell your marketing department what that strategy is, they're going to go do this. If you go tell your sales team that that's your strategy, they're going to go do that. Meanwhile, the customer is going to feel some form of disjointedness in terms of how you're actually going and reaching out to them without some form of uniformity in that outreach.
Well, you were talking about 3 or 4 different markets, different strategies, right? If I'm going after it, I gotta really step back and even think about where am I going. And I may have 3 different destinations, but one might need an off-road 4-wheel drive, right? The other one might need a scooter. and the other one I need a Cadillac, right? They're all different.
And I would say something I think that you're going to start seeing more and more on the other side of all of this is the person that's sitting on top of sales is going to have to become more marketing minded. And the person who's sitting on top of marketing is going to have to become more sales minded. And both of them are going to have to become much more systems and data driven. And I feel like right now there's always that there's a gap between sales and marketing. And I think part of that's just been by design. Unfortunately, it's been by design. You have them both working in separate things. But the truth of the matter is whatever one of those strategies that you pick, you can align both the marketing and sales efforts, and you can use marketing to cover far more ground than you can your sales side of things through a whole slew of different mediums. And I feel like from your sales side of things, you need to be very strategic with how you're going to use them. They need to be super busy, but the busy needs to be very strategic, how you want to use that one-to-one relationship person that's getting in front of the right people, having that strategic consultative conversation. If you have those people doing top of funnel, high volume stuff, you're not maximizing their skill set. And to even add another layer into the mix, we're talking sales and marketing. I feel like one of the biggest things that's standing out right now is people are trying to infuse the sales development aspect of things right in the middle of there, because there's a gap there that does exist between what marketing can bring in through a lot of coverage, some air coverage through marketing, what sales can do on the relationship side of things. But there needs to be a role that's a blend there that takes many one-to-ones. Sales isn't going to do many one-to-one type of communication. They're going to do very specific and strategic one-to-one communication. You got to get someone in there that can do one-to-one communication, whether it be through phone or social or email at scale. Because the person on the...
Wait a minute, you're saying I got a marketing group that's going out casting a broad net.
I look at it almost in the sense of like a one-to-many.
One-to-many.
Yep.
You got your sales reps that are one-to-one pretty much.
Yep. And
you're saying there's this gap in between that has to cover the need that both of those are generating.
Yes, and I think the sales rep is not, the lead may or may not, is most likely not going to be at a point where it warrants a high-level strategic conversation yet. However, marketing can't get personal enough to be able to bring it to the table.
Is that part of the problem, that companies believe what marketing is going to bring in, or they're hoping, maybe that's what it is, there's a fallacy, I'm hoping everything they bring in is ready for someone to close?
Yeah, and I think that what the technology out there and what's out in the market right now is kind of pointing towards and maybe giving a slight illusion that can be the case through...
because they're trying to sell their product?
Absolutely. I mean, they're saying things like, well, marketing automation can totally automate all of this stuff for you all the way down the line. Well, maybe, it can do that. But you have to think about your customer on the other end. Will they engage in fully automated stuff, or at some point do they want to engage in a one-to-one? Maybe not all the time, but at some point they want to engage in a one-to-one just at some point, and it may not even be at the point where the sales need to get involved, and they understand that. They just want to have a conversation to get a couple initial things answered before they're ready to take that initial next step. So
sales and marketing is not ready to chuck the people side of it yet. Marketing automation isn't totally replacing the human element.
Yeah, and I think probably the best way to say that is as a buyer. If you're a buyer of whatever the service is that you're selling, would you?
So you're saying I got to find out a way to blend that together best for the market that I'm going after.
Absolutely.
So is the role of the salesperson, is that totally changed?
I'm going
to ask it. I'm going to read. You're going out and hiring a salesperson tomorrow for concept. What are you looking for?
Well, I guess for me, and I think that the contrast of what we're going to see post this coronavirus stuff versus before is probably less than even some of the industries. At Concept, for the most part, we do a lot of our sales presentations currently through webinars and through phone calls, and almost everything that we're doing is through telecommunications, video communications. So I feel like from my perspective at Concept, what we're looking for is, one, we have to figure out, we used to be able to put somebody on the phone that was, when we started 2002, we were primarily all sales development. Now, when we go look for someone that's in sales, they got to be able to talk strategically about how systems meets marketing meets sales development all blends together.
They got to be educated on everything you've been talking about.
And it lends to what we mentioned a little bit earlier, the strategy that has to go into being able to have a call to walk them through the solution that we're going to be able to provide. That conversation is getting much more in depth than it ever was before. Previously, when we put somebody on the phone and we had to have a sales call, a lot of people were buying the premise of, we're just going to discipline, make a lot of phone calls for you and get in front of your market. Now, people are starting to recognize there needs to be some more sophistication in that, and they got a lot of moving parts inside of what they do, and they need someone that in an ideal world will blend into that to help pull all of that together. They will be the one-to-one, talking on the sales development side, they'll be the one-to-one that maximizes what their marketing team's doing and also maximizes what their sales team's doing by letting their sales team stay focused over here. Yeah. What they do best.
Well, you mentioned that, hey, before you even get started with any of this, companies got to sit back and think about their strategy, right? Because there could be multiple markets they want to go after, and each of those markets are different strategies, which means I might be utilizing technology differently for each one of those. How is that changing my staff? Are you talking to companies, or are you seeing inside companies that maybe they're not geared up to move forward? And it's no fault of theirs. It's that, hey, the market's changing. You mentioned earlier that you got to have sales managers now that they're marketing guys, and you got to have marketing managers that are sales guys or girls, right?
Yep.
And then you just mentioned you got to have sales people. Where do I start if I'm a company and I'm sitting back and saying, okay, I can do the strategy thing, but wait a minute, I don't know if I'm staffed to do this.
Yeah. Well, we'll just look at the extremes. And I think that the one extreme is, maybe previously I had all salespeople. Well, in order to be where I need to be moving forward, I'm never going to be able to cover the ground that I need to cover with the different types of channels and messaging that I need to do with all salespeople. They just aren't going to be able to do it. And they also, especially if they have accounts that they're managing too, there's just no chance that they're going to be able to cover that ground. All right. So
is that almost, when I say almost, is that almost a universal statement? Like almost every industry, and I know there's exceptions, but is it safe to say, hey, if you had 10 sales reps, I don't know if that's the best use of your money moving forward to have 10, because you're just not going to cover the ground?
I would say if you have 10 sales reps, very little marketing and no sales development, then you need to, no one-to-one in the middle of that. You need to reevaluate what that looks like. But on the same side of things, you can't go the other way either. You can't have all marketing and no salespeople, because they're never going to be able to take it far enough along to ultimately get closed deals.
How do you find a balance?
Yeah, and I think that's where the trick comes in, is figuring out what you actually need and blending those all together.
Is your strategy driving that? Based on my strategy, that's going to drive my back end infrastructure, my back end need?
Absolutely, and I think you have to ask yourself, what kind of a commitment am I making to new business development? That's, I think, really where it comes down to is, if it's a nice to have, it's going to be the first to go on the chopping block every single time that comes through, because it's going to be the toughest business to go get is the new business as compared to the farming of the existing accounts. But I think you just got to make a commitment to where you're at in terms of how interested you are in getting after the market and being aggressive inside of the market. And then I also think you have to be genuine and sincere in saying, what do I want these prospective customers to experience from my organization? Do I want them to always see me on Google when they search? Do I want them to hear from me on social? Is that important to me or not? Some it is, some it isn't. Do I want them to be receiving promotional emails, informative emails from my company on a one-to-many perspective? Do I want those that are a fit for my organization that are not a customer to be receiving one-to-one outreach, to be giving the prospect on the other end the impression I genuinely am committed to gaining their business? I have a dedicated resource going to try to get that business for them. And then once I get that appointment, what is the level of person that I have that's actually that's actually going through and providing the solution? You could do all of those first parts right, but if you don't have the right person on the other end that's aligned with all of that messaging that you've done all the way up to that point, they just go rogue as soon as they get the lead, it's gonna bust the whole process that you had in place. So I feel like all of those aspects have to be very tightly knit, and are going to have to continue to get more tightly knit as time continues to go.
How important is it for companies to know what their competition is doing? Because you mentioned, how much do I want to be out in front of a customer? And you're talking about market presence, not necessarily a sales rep. You're talking about content, media, video, whatever, right? How important is it to know what your competition doing? Because if your competition's really out there and you say, I'm not into that, if the industry's moved that way, you might find yourself in a difficult situation, right?
Yeah, and not only just if they're there and they're ahead of you, there's probably a chance that they're not stopping there.
They've made the decision, we're moving this way.
So with each day that goes, it's almost like, once you get some of that stuff rolling, it can start rolling downhill quicker than it is to get over the hump. So the more that you wait to get over that hump, the further down the hill your potential competition's already rolling. They already have tighter processes, and they've got the core components already in place to move that way.
Once again, and I like to look at things from the decision maker standpoint, because that's been my role for many years. So that's kind of how I look at things. So if I'm a decision maker watching this and listening to you today, I could have a little fear right now, especially if I'm a little bit on the older mentality, okay? Old school, I kind of liked the sales reps, and that's kind of how I did. And yeah, I had a marketing department. They basically made me flyers, and right? And there's still a lot of that out there. I would want to know, is this going to cost me a lot of money?
I guess I would answer that two ways. From a very simplistic standpoint, if we take your 10 rep model that you have, that we talked about a little bit earlier, and they're all 10 reps, I believe you can get much more efficient with the same cost that you're spending on those 10 reps by diversifying that down, keeping your reps focused on what they're doing.
What if I have 2 reps and I got a marketing person and I got a sales admin? I got 4 people. Can you still take that and just restructure those dollars and is it safe to say, hey, you probably can restructure what you're spending, don't spend any more money, just restructure it and you're going to be more effective?
Yeah, and I think probably the best way to identify whether or not you can pull that off, I believe you can, and I think we run into that very often. And I would say the more disconnected that those 3 groups are in the current state, the more likely you are to be able to do much more with the same amount of money. For example, if you have your marketing team doing one thing, your sales admin doing another thing, and your sales reps doing this, there's a chance there's redundancy inside of there that you're paying duplicate on, or there's voids inside of there that you're not capitalizing on. So however you decide to do it, pulling all of those
Which
together.
is costly. However you break it down, it's costly. It's inefficient.
Yep. And then I also think just something else on the sales and marketing cost side of things, it's all, if you're focused on new business development or accounts or whatever, it's all relative, I think, in terms of how you look at it.
What's all relative?
The cost that goes into that. And I think there's various different thresholds that you get to along the way, that there's a little bit of R&D and research and investment that goes into getting you up through a hump. But once you get to that next milestone that you have, it starts paying its dividends down through there. So if you only commit to this amount of sales or marketing focus, naturally you probably are only going to expect slightly better than that. And I think it continues to go up as you look at it, ideally.
Yeah. It's kind of like I've used the analogy of a faucet. Faucet, you got hot water, cold water. You can turn both of them on or off, or you can make warm water. And I think part of the problem with sales is a lot of people think, I'll turn it on when I want it, and I'll turn it off when I don't want it. I'll turn hot water on when I want hot. I'll turn cold when I want cold. But kind of what I'm hearing from you is it really doesn't work that way. It's a constant tweaking of both nozzles to get whatever the temperature is that I need for now.
Yeah.
And what I need for that market or that message or that campaign, right? Or that product line or that service. And sales it's a work in process. It's not an on or off. It's a work in process. Yep. And I think that's important for companies to know. And
I think, another analogy I feel like that goes on to that is, if your ultimate goal is to just generate leads, you have the mindset of turning it on or off when you're trying to generate leads based on business need. I really think the way that you need to be looking at it is trying to build an engine that continues to run for you. Now, you can dial the engine up on RPMs. You can dial the engine down on RPMs. That makes sense. But you can't take the oil out of the engine.
The engine has to run all time.
It has to. Yeah, you have to have that running. And if you pull the oil out of there, the downstream repercussions are you have to fix it, rebuild it. The time to get it fixed and rebuilt, to get it back up and running when you want to throw the gas down on the thing, it's not going to be there. It's not going to respond like you want when you go to throw the gas down on the thing. So you do have to keep it, you got to keep it rolling. And you can definitely bring it up and down as you need to, but you do have to keep that rolling all the way.
As president of Concept, do you find you spend your time, more of your time, in any one area?
I would say sales and marketing is probably an area that I feel like I spend a lot of time in, for a couple different reasons. I enjoy that. I enjoy that. I enjoy spending time there. And two, I think it's the most dynamic. It's the most ever-changing that's going on. And we're kind of blessed. And it's an interesting for us because we sell sales development, marketing, and CRM services. And, one would come back and think, hey, you guys must have your process completely dialed in start to finish. Well, I believe we have a very strong process. I believe our systems are very strong, and we have visibility through all aspects of that marketing, and not only from source, but also just the attribution that our marketing team is doing. So maybe it was sourced by a salesperson, but they stopped working it, kicked it back over to marketing. Marketing works it, progresses it, keeps it going, nurtures it. Then it goes into our sales development group for them to start doing one-to-one, and then it gets kicked over to a salesperson. Well, if you look at the source, they would say, well, the salesperson sourced that a while ago. Well, that really wasn't what happened there. It depended on how you do that. So I think we've got a really good model tightened up on our attribution, but it's changing. It always changes. It always is shifting. And
so you can't turn it on and just walk away.
No. And then I think what else is challenging too is our clients are relying on us to be on the leading edge of all of these different technologies and processes and methodologies that you use to do sales development. So a lot of times we're trying to put all of these different things through the paces internally to be able to continue to bring these models back over to our customers on things that seem to be working and things that we tried and it didn't work.
Well, you've mentioned a couple times about a sales engine. Walk me through what would be a perfect sales engine. What would be made up of? What are the components of that engine? Once again, I'm an owner sitting back. I'm a VP of sales. I'm president sitting back, and I'm thinking an engine. I don't know if I got an engine, Jeff. What would I need? What's that look like?
Yeah, I think that varies very much by company, by strategy, by goals and objectives that they're trying to accomplish and what they need there. But I guess if I had to just break out some top level components that go into that, I think that I would be probably first starting and making sure that my net that I'm covering at the very top end is covering some ground. Like when people go to people know of me, how comfortable am I that people know of me somewhere along the way? And that can be done through a variety of ways. But do you have a means that people know about you?
And is that a constant thing that's going on? I'm constantly letting the market know I'm here and I'm introducing them. Is that a continual thing?
It is, and I think that you have to evaluate that on two fronts. You have to make sure that you're getting out there in front of people that are unknown to date. You know, people that are not in your database right now, that you have no idea who they are. You have to make sure you're getting out in front of them. But I think probably where a big miss is I'll talk with tons of companies that have a database of 100,000 accounts or 100,000 contacts inside of there, or even 20,000. But they're focused on generating anonymous people to come to their website when they have decision makers queued up, teed up, sitting inside of this database, but they don't want to focus their time there. These are the accounts that they want to go after. These are with the people they already know, but all their attention's on turning anonymous into someone to come to their website and fill out their form that they didn't already have figured out. And so I think there's a big miss inside of that. I already know who they are, but how do I figure out how to keep moving them along the process? And so I feel like you need a strategy to be able to do that. And I feel like it comes in a variety of forms and, getting out in front of them with emails, one-to-many emails, and that's not new. Sending out one-to-many, that's a thing that's been in existence for a long time. But I think it's important to note, don't confuse sending out a monthly newsletter with effective email marketing strategies. I'm going to send out a newsletter to everybody, and then they'll come in and we'll get them.
That's covering a lot of ground.
Yeah,
awareness and all that.
Yeah, from what I've seen, yeah, you may snag a couple inside of there, but I think there needs to be a lot more strategy to what you're actually trying to do. Are you sending out an email to your entire database? If so, how personalized is that email? Like how much are you hitting somebody as compared to taking that database, having some things that you know about them, and actually putting together some various segments of emails that are going out that speak much more pretty targeted. How much more impactful is that going to be? And then how do you take that 20,000 database that you have, or whatever the case is, and actually pick who's reaching out to these people with one-to-one? Which people here do I want to actually put a call into from a person? Which of these people here do I actually want to try to get in front of? Will give me some time to see if I can come out and have a meeting with them. I mean, in almost all of the customers that we have, they have a handful to quite a few very specific target accounts that they know they could service very well, but they just can't figure out how to bust down the door. Well, putting them on Google and putting a search out that may not be the way that you're going to drive them in. You may need to get a much more specific approach to get out in front of them. And that may not necessarily be your reps doing that. It may be a 6-month, 9-month continuous process of
just keeping your name
in front of them and building a rapport. And so what kind of model do you have to go after those types of people? While this is capturing anonymous.
Well, that's interesting because, getting back to where you kicked this off half hour ago is the strategy. If I want to go after these target accounts, my strategy might need to be 12, 18, 24, 36 months. It may never end, right? Because if it was easy, then I would just go get them. So what I'm hearing from you saying is I got to have a strategy that's going after these accounts regularly. And just because they don't land in 3 months or 6 months doesn't mean my strategy isn't working. It just might be a long-term strategy. And then I think it gets back to what you were saying, your engine. That's what you have an engine for. It's to do that.
Yep. And I think that you want to be at peace with the fact that those target accounts that you're going after, you're all over. You want to be at peace with that. I think that should be something that should be very important.
If they're target, then give it your best foot.
Yeah, you want to make sure you have all of your bullets that you feel like would resonate to them over to them. Don't, and not always the case, but I feel like in many cases, just like, Bob, you are responsible for that account. Go get it. And what ends up happening is Bob goes out, tries to meet with them, even maybe has a meeting with them. Nothing happens. No more goes into that account. And that's the last that was touched. It was touched a long time ago. I feel like that's really where marketing and sales dev can fill that void, is to be able to continuously stay in front of them.
That's the engine.
Nonstop.
If that's happening, because there's no engine.
Yep.
There's no engine.
Yep.
Well, you hit on a couple things. One, you said, hey, you got to have a strategy of where I'm going. You said, hey, I got to have something going on all the time that I'm keeping a market presence, a market awareness. I'm trying to attract new people, just that they're familiar with me. You said, hey, that's one thing that would go into this engine. The other thing you said was, once I start getting some people who are aware of me, how do I stay in front of them? That's another part of the engine. Then you said, hey, if you got these target customers, which everybody does, right? They all have those A accounts that they want to go after, all right, or the B accounts. What's my strategy to go after them? I got to build that into the engine. I got to stay on top of that. So you've already broken out about 3 areas that this engine has to be covering.
And what allows for all of that to happen is your systems set up to be geared to allow for you to do that. You have to have your system set up to be able to do that, or else you're here's a story. With all of this coronavirus stuff going on, our CRM group has just been going bonkers right now because everyone's coming back. They got all these reps that are working remote, and the companies have they said, hey, go sell some stuff from your house. And we work in a lot of, I would say, some older school industries in a lot of cases, manufacturing, industrial equipment, supply chain, logistics, and a lot of that stuff's been, it wasn't technology, we'll put it that way. People are going out, meeting with people face to face, having conversations, walking into a facility. And now these guys have been tasked to start calling people up and selling, which is a completely different strategy than they've ever had before on how to actually go sell. And so now they're coming back and they're telling their sales managers, well, who should I call? And what's been fascinating is the sales, because they're used to going and touring their territory, and they know where the spots are inside of there that they can jump in. And, we got sales managers and marketing managers coming back to us and saying, our guys need to figure out how to actually build a calling list inside of their CRM. They need to know who even to go after. We need to help them figure out how to segment their data. And what's been fascinating is all that data and everything, it's in a lot of cases, it's sitting inside of their CRM. It's there. In many cases, we had a client that has this come up. We've been working with them for 9-10 years. We've built this database, very robust database for them with decision makers and key intel. But I think it was an interesting observation for us to be able to sit back and say, just because you have all of the data, just because your CRM is seemingly tight and buttoned up, you have to make sure that your reps know how to actually leverage that tool for them to be able to go after, and that the information that they're giving back to you is what you can then use from marketing, from sales development to keep this engine working for them. I think there's a disconnect right there. Sales wants to be the end of it. They want to get it and be the end of it. They'll determine whether it's good or bad and then end. When really I think what they need to be looking at is saying, I need to determine what I can gather with my conversation that I have to get back over into the engine for more sophisticated touching along the way, because they will touch them better than I ever could at scale.
Well, you just hit on something that you talked about probably 45 minutes ago now. And you said that we lose sight of things. Right, we got a name, and then we made a call into it, and that's been the end of it. You just kind of hit that again, and you said the old school mentality was marketing, bring us a lead, we're assuming it's a good lead, sales, close it, end of story. And that was kind of the step 1, 2, 3, and you kicked the meeting off, and you said that typically doesn't work that way. And now I thought you just kind of hit on that again, because you said in that scenario, the sales rep was the end of the line. Yep, closed it. Bring me another one. Right? But what you're saying is that doesn't happen all. The sales rep has to be part of that engine. They got to be a big part. They got to be putting stuff back in the system and throw back in the engine.
Absolutely. And I don't know. I don't know what the primary driving force is that's caused that breakdown to happen. I think it all started, or I think a big part of it was, why do I need to put stuff inside of CRM? It doesn't even make sense. I can hold down the fort by myself without doing that. That was the thing.
Just an older school mentality.
And then it's slowly starting to move back. I think once we can bridge the gap to get sales, the majority of the sales team, to buy into the fact that they're helping themselves, not helping their manager see what they're doing on a daily basis. They're helping themselves by driving more insight back over to continue to fuel more deals for them. Once we can better bridge that gap across the industry, I feel like things are really going to start booming.
Well, I think you hit on a lot of things, and I guess maybe summing some of that up. A sales engine's pretty important. If you don't have a sales engine, you might want to be sitting back and saying, how do I get one, and what does that look like for my company? And you mentioned another thing, that systems play a big part. And CRM obviously is part of that, and most companies have CRM today. Not everybody is sitting on some big marketing automation tool, right? But they're not totally, we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Yep.
And I think it's important for people that are watching today that they heard some of the things that you said. You may not have to spend more money. Let's take the dollars you have and restructure them, right? Even if you need more, it's irrelevant. Let's take what you have and make the best out of what you have. You're going to be better than you are today because they're going to restructure and make you more efficient. If you need more will probably come because you're putting together an engine with the dollars you do have, and that will produce more than you had in the past. So I think there's a couple things I want people to get from you. What you said today is, hey, we don't have to spend more money. Day one, spend what you're spending now, but let's restructure it. And the engine is critical, and sales and marketing got to be talking together.
Absolutely.
They got to talk. The other thing is, I think this topic has been a passion of mine. Obviously, in my history with Concept, and 20 years ago now, starting this at some point, I live and breathe it too. And I think if companies, especially today, if they're not sitting down and making sales and marketing a priority, you can't get caught up in, well, I don't have the right people, and so therefore, let's call a spade. If you don't have the right people, you got to get the right people.
Well, I'm gonna switch it around on you a little bit here.
All right.
All right.
You're going to put me on the spot?
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Let me get a drink of water.
All right. So, for those listeners that don't know, you're my dad, and you started the company, and obviously we've been around it for a long time. 2 years ago, when I moved into sales and marketing and started bringing things, I started coming with some of these ideas. We were of the mindset where we had salespeople.
Yeah.
Right?
We were what we were describing half hour ago.
Okay. And then now we have incorporated sales development, one-to-many email marketing, inbound, all of these different marketing automation, all these different aspects that were rounding out the edges that we described inside of this meeting. What has your take been on the difference between that strategy now in retrospect? And it was for those not listening, it was a grind to get you and your brother, the co-owner of the company, bought into the fact that we shouldn't just have quantifiable sales guys on the phone making calls. Now, in retrospect, looking back on it, where are you at on that whole topic?
I'm sold 100%.
Why?
I'm sold. Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. If you remember when you went down that path, you got resistance.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I want to preface, that was 2 years ago. That's not in the face of COVID-19 today. But I did not say, yeah, I'm into that. Right?
Yep.
And what we did say is, prove it. Right? We gave you $1,000.
Yep.
We said, go see what you could do. And you did. You came back and you said, well, hey, I'm working through some things and I'm okay.
Well, also, just for clarity, I want to add to that $1,000 you gave me, before that $1,000 came in, we had 4 sales guys at that point in time. Well, that $1,000 was only $1,000 of additional investment. The rest of the money we were spending on all those sales guys got retooled into a more of a sales and marketing manager to come in and kind of sit on top of some of that stuff. I ditched.
How many sales reps do you have now?
1 sales rep.
Okay, we had 4.
Yeah.
How many people you got on the marketing side?
2.
Okay, so you got 3. How much? And you're spending some dollars out on marketing.
Ads, yep. And software. We got software. Yep.
So you probably still have the equivalent of 4 people.
Yep.
You've totally retooled. I'm a believer in it, okay? But I'm going to answer your question because I think this is important for anybody who's watching. 1, it works, but it's not a turn on and magic happens. I think the biggest thing you did for Concept when you introduced this marketing to Concept is you were able to demonstrate every step of the way where the dollar was spent and what it was doing along the funnel. You created a funnel, we called it the snake, and you showed every step of the way. I spent $1,000. I got X impressions. I got X clicks. I got X form fills. I've had X appointments. I've had X proposals, and I got X sale dollars. You did that. Every month you came in. And then we said, okay, we'll take $2,000 because it was working. Take $4,000. Take $6,000. And we got up to spending, I won't continue going, but we got up to spending a lot of money, right? And then
a month.
Yes. Yeah. Well over 6 figures a year.
Because we, at the time, at least my take on it was, it's all relative.
It was.
It's all relative.
Right? And my partner, Greg, what did he tell you the one time?
We got it up to as high as been. He came back and said, how much can you possibly take? Yeah. Take as much as you need, because at these returns, it doesn't, just tell me how much we can throw.
Did you remember what you said?
I remember getting back to him and just saying something to the effect of, I don't think we can continue down this channel with more investments, which was a lot of paid search that we were leaning on. We now need to diversify some of this. I'll take the funds, but we need to go in a different. I'm confident with this channel right now. We need to continue to build out some of our other channels.
Yeah, I remember you saying It's not a matter of just throwing more dollars. We got to get better and more strategic with the dollars we're spending. And that's what kind of kicked your question off to me. And that's what I'm saying to companies is get more strategic with the dollars you're spending. I'm not spending any more dollars today. Totally spending them differently. And then to answer your question, how do I feel about it? Much more confident today. We have an engine. The engine doesn't have attitudes. The engine doesn't get sick. I can redirect an engine very quickly. Hard to redirect people. People have specific skill sets. Engines are diverse. I can use an engine to plow a field. I can use an engine to fly. I can use an engine to drive a car. It's an engine. It's got power. That's what I think, what you're talking about. Companies they have to adopt this in some form or fashion. And you don't have to jump into the deep end day one, but you got to jump in.
Absolutely. And I think it was important to, I guess I have a question would be, was the results of those advertising or marketing efforts, was that the impressive piece, or was the real impactful piece the ability to show it?
Well, at the time, the impactful piece was showing it because it confirmed the dollar. It confirmed the dollar being spent and exactly what that dollar did. That was the value.
Yep. And I just want to, reason why I asked is I guess I want to stress that that's probably one of the biggest misses that I see is companies just saying, I'll just know if my revenue goes up, if it's working. So I'll do the front, I'll see the back. I don't really care about being able to show each step of the way. But I think for us, that was what ultimately got it to where we could, and we were able to make actual decisions based on each step of the way.
Well, and I think yeah, that's exactly right. Plus you were showing momentum. Even though the dollars were what they were, but even though the dollars were up, you were showing momentum, and we were looking backwards now at this pipeline and saying, this pipeline is just getting bigger and bigger. And if I'm getting these dollars today, what's it going to look like in 6 months? What's it going to look like in 3 months?
And this is.
Let me stop one thing, okay? Let's make sure we understand. You went out, you took this as far as you could, then what'd you do?
Went out and hired expertise.
And I think that's important for companies. At some point, you have to accept the fact that you may not have all the personnel you need. And you took it as far as you could, and you said, hey, for me to really leverage this, I'm not the guy to do this. I got other responsibilities here, and we have to keep this moving. And you hired some seasoned people.
Yeah, we brought in 20 to 30 plus years of experience in digital marketing between some team members.
Yeah. But it didn't cost us any more money. We shuffled dollars around.
Yep.
And that's important. I'm actually glad you brought that up because I think that's important for people that are watching. Right? Not out trying to sell you a bill of goods. Don't spend any more money. Restructure it and get some people in who know how to help you do that. And if you don't, I don't think they're going to compete. The market is way too competitive today, just not going to compete.
Yep. And I think as we look at this, and I'm seeing it even more and more, is there's definitely a discipline component to some of this stuff. You got to be disciplined to do it every single day. You got to be diligent enough to look at it every single day. And you got to be diligent to pull all of the team members together to look at this every day. Your sales team has to understand your marketing strategy because they're an integral piece of it, and your marketing team has to understand what sales is seeing. You have to get them involved in the process. They will value the process more. And if they don't understand it, if they don't get it, then I think you have to spend some time making sure they have it, or you're going to need them bought into the process.
Yep.
So I think that's a very important piece of the puzzle too, is making sure that you got buy-in across the board from all team members that are in that revenue generation, revenue management piece of it.
Well, I think what you're talking about is it's a 360-degree view of sales and marketing. It's a holistic approach. It's no longer components that are isolated doing their own thing. It's components that are all tied to a hub that's being run by this engine. That's some specific coordinated strategy.
And this is going to sound weird, but what it did was it really dialed the heat up on the sales team. And here's why. Because the sales team liked the strategy. They were bought into the methods that we were using. They were bought into the approach, and they agreed that the leads that we were sending over were matching the strategy that we had and doing what they need to do.
You better be closing them.
So now it's simply a matter of the leads are not good. This whole process, you told me along the way that we were doing the strategy with the approach, with the messaging, with what we needed, and I keep putting these in front of you. You can't tell me that the leads are no longer good anymore. I've got it all the way up to where you told me you needed to close a deal. And now we've put a ton of time as of recently, now being able to actually isolate down the salesperson's process.
Oh, that's another whole show we can talk about, right?
Has allowed for us to focus a lot of time there, because we were no longer having to go retool from the very beginning to find a new lead source because the sales guy says that it's not good. They're into it. And now they're saying, well, the leads are good. I need to focus on how to better position or sell what we do. And once we're taking strides that way, that's a big game changer when your close ratio just starts getting dialed up with the engine working on the back end as well.
Yeah. And the other thing we haven't talked about is that whole engine is bringing in very targeted customers, much better fits for your strategy, and that's for anybody, right? You got a strategy, you're going after market. The business you're going to get is a much better fit.
Yeah, and that was a lesson that we learned. That was when we first started going down the paid search path, we had leads flying in all over the place. People calling, and we had people filling out forms and engaging with us on chat. We want lead gen. We want lead gen. We want lead gen.
And sales were higher.
However, what we ended up finding then at that point, since we were tracking it all the way through, was we were closing a lot of deals, lots of deals. We had the biggest year we ever had in new business from sales once we got that engine up and going. We blew the previous numbers out of the water. But then we had a lesson learned. They weren't the exact customers that we traditionally had. And it was a little confusing for us at the time, because previously, when are you going to turn away people that want your need? They saw everything you do. They heard what you want. And they said, I want that. And I think what we've learned now is we constantly are tightening that up. Just because someone wants to come in and they need that service, we've really done a lot to make sure we're actually turning business away now if they're not someone who's truly committed to building an engine. Yep. If they just want a lead source, we've now learned they're not going to work for it. Like, that's not going to work, because they're going to go through that same problem that we just described.
Yep. Well, you shared a lot of things. I thought you shared a lot of things. I think you gave probably some people to think about if they're in the situation that we talked about. If somebody wanted to reach out to you or to Concept, how do they reach you?
Best place is probably LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jeff Harsh, and I'd recommend LinkedIn.
I appreciate everything that you talked about, and I know we've been trying to do this for a while and had much of your staff on the show already. And the first time we're having you on, so thank you for coming in.
Well, with that being said, I do have to say, we talk about doing all this stuff. For those that have listened to some of those guys and gals on our team that helped pull all of this together, we couldn't have done anything without the right people in the right roles, and so they've been awesome. So I have to share, they were the ones that did a lot of the heavy lifting through all of this, and so it's
yeah.
Thanks.
Well, that's a good point. I think it gets back to what we talked about. You have to have the right people. You have a good staff. It enables you to execute some things you want to execute.
Yep.
Well, hey, thanks for listening in. I thought this show was interesting. I was looking forward to having on. It's a hot topic right now. Sales and marketing is always a hot topic. Sales and marketing is the heartbeat of your company. You've got to figure out how we're going to make it better, especially in the light of COVID-19. There isn't going to go back to what the norm was. The norm's not going to work the same as it did. If you think that's going to happen, I don't think it's going to. I think you're going to have to revamp some things. Hopefully you got some things out of the show today, maybe some steps, some things to think about, some decisions you may need to make on your end. If you like shows like this, hit subscribe. Make sure you're following us. We got more shows coming like this. Also, if you want to see a specific type of show, give me an email, dharsh@danharsh.com. Let me know what kind of shows you're looking for. If there's a certain topic on sales, marketing, CRM, or business in general, we'd love to hear from you. Hey, thanks again for tuning in.